Hello, everyone. This is Jessica Morgan, an associate in Husch Blackwell's Energy and Natural Resources Group. We are excited to welcome you to the 6th installment of this year's webinar series brought to you by Husch Blackwell and the Texas Renewable Energies Industries Alliance. This hour, we will focus on green building activity throughout Texas. Before we begin, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your audience console are multiple application icons for your use during the program today, and I would like to take a minute to highlight a few of the key icons for you. If you have any questions during the webcast, please submit your questions through the question box. We will try to answer all questions during the webcast today, but if a fuller answer is needed, or if we run out of time, it will be answered later via email. We truly appreciate audience participation and encourage you to submit questions. If you have any technical difficulty, please click on the help icon. It has a question mark and provides information regarding common technical issues. A copy of today's slide deck is available in the resource list icon that looks like a folder at the bottom of your screen. This program has been approved for Texas Continuing Legal Education Credit. To report your hour in Texas, click on the CLE widget at the bottom of your screen and complete the questions. You'll need your bar number to submit. Lastly, a recording of the webcast will be available tomorrow for watching and sharing. Once available, a link in the recording will be emailed to you along with a certificate of attendance. A podcast version of the program will be available on Husch Blackwell's website. Joining me today is Jonathan Krebs and Michael Myers. Jonathan is the first executive director for the USGBC Texas chapter. In 2015, Jonathan was named interim executive director over the formation of USGBC Texas, bringing together green building resources and knowledge from across the state. He helped to facilitate the merger of the 4 Texas legacy chapters and accepted the permanent role in January 2017. He earned a LEED Green Associate credential in 2010 and speaks regularly about the chapter's mission, LEED, and building sustainability. Jonathan has presented best practices workshops to national audiences for USGBC and was elected to the board of directors for the Dallas-Fort Worth Association Executives, a chapter of the ASAE in 2013. He was also named part of the Who's Who in Energy by Dallas Business Journal in 2012, 2013, and in 2014. Our other presenter is Michael Myers. He's a nationally known speaker and leader in energy efficiency and sustainability. He has an extensive career filled with executive-level success and is known for his ability to create innovative programs and manage multi-million-dollar projects. Michael currently provides support to the U.S. Department of Energy to assist all federal agencies in compliance with the federal guiding principles for high performance and sustainable buildings. He has worked for Lockheed Martin, U.S. DOE, the cities of Austin, San Antonio, and New York. And with that, I'll let Jonathan and Michael take it away.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. This is Mike Myers, and welcome everybody. So let's talk right from the very start. Green building began here in the city of Austin almost 30 years ago. And at that time, we looked at green building as a way to combine our programs and services, looked at ways to save funds and expenses, but really it was about finding ways to make buildings better. It was looking at ways that could we have buildings that were healthy, that saved energy, that saved water. And it began here in the city of Austin with the Austin Green Building Program. That program that went along to be recognized at the United Nations Earth Summit back in 1992. And it is the beginning and in a sense the grandfather of green building programs that we see around the country today. In terms of continued performance, the Austin Green Building Program has continued to just be a leader in the green building program. You can see here in terms of the single family activity, over 15,000 homes have now been certified under the Austin Green Building Program. Nearly 200 apartments, multifamily buildings have also been certified, and nearly 300, about 261 commercial buildings have also been certified here in the city of Austin, so that we have close to 16,000 Austin Green Building rating projects in this area, which is just fantastic. And the Austin programs, move forward, and other cities started to look at green building programs as well. And one of the programs I'll highlight today is the Build San Antonio Green Program. And you can see here as well, this program has over 7,000 green building certifications to date. It has saved over 12 megawatts in terms of energy savings, and also has had a significant amount of savings in terms of the emissions. Now, one of the interesting things in terms of the community-based green building programs as we have evolved over the years is that we start to look at what does the community want? What do the builders want? What do the homeowners want? And one of the areas that we see the sort of shift is what San Antonio is doing, as well as Austin and other communities, and that is incorporating renewable energy. And Bringing Solar Home is the program that is provided by the Build San Antonio Green Program. Really sort of beginning to integrate renewable energy as well as part of the overall green building experience for the homeowner as well as for the builder. And you can see in terms of the activity here in terms of San Antonio, just really sort of bringing this forward and really being an active participant in the community to promote green building, but also to make sure that we incorporate renewable energy as well. Now, all these programs, the Austin program, the San Antonio program, has led to a lot of activity within the state. We have lots of activity in Dallas with the Dallas Green Building Initiatives and the Dallas Green Building Ordinance for buildings. We've seen a lot of activity in El Paso and Houston. And then at the same time, we've seen this growth now into national programs. The U.S. Green Building Council, the LEED program, Jonathan will be talking to you more about that. We have Green Globe activities, but we also have seen a lot of growth, not only in Texas, but across the country and on a national level, and a federal level, even on an international level, where green building is being incorporated. And one of the things that we are starting to see here is, why is this happening? And what's moving forward here? Well, one of the things that we've seen is that, especially on the residential side, is that a third of the builders that have been surveyed have said that they have incorporated green building practices into their home building practices. And we see that this increase percentage in terms of building green building is going to continue to increase over time. We've also started to see whole developments, incorporating green building practices for all their homes, as well as incorporating renewable energy as part of their project. One of the things here that you see on the slide is a development called Whisper Valley Community. All the homes there are green homes, and all the homes actually all the homes have renewable energy or PV as part of every building. So the question becomes, why are we doing this? And as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the beginning of the Austin Green Building Program, it's about saving money. It's to consume less energy. It's to use less water. It's to use fewer resources and have a better indoor environmental quality. The idea here is, let's have a better quality of life. We should be able to build homes and buildings, offices, developments that are healthy, that save energy, that save water, and that are healthy to the occupants or the tenants of those buildings.
And thanks, Mike. Can I give us a good framework of kind of where we're at looking at certification programs here in Texas? Most everybody probably on this call is familiar with LEED or Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And what LEED has done in its nearly 20 years of existence, where we're looking at buildings that are certified through LEED have a 34% lower CO2 emissions. They consume on average 25% less energy and 11% less water use. And through the construction process have diverted more than 80 million tons of waste from landfills. So it's a lot of these things intersect within the building industry.
And one of the things that we've also seen from what Jonathan just mentioned in terms of the savings from LEED projects is that we're beginning to see the very similar savings on a federal level. On a federal level, in dealing with our federal buildings, they've also seen 23% lower energy use, 28% lower water use, 23% lower building operating expenses, and also almost 10% less waste landfilled as part of our federal green building activities. Now, what's interesting about this is that the activity that has occurred through LEED that Jonathan was just mentioning about, as well as the Texas Green Building Programs, is that on the federal level, this is also beginning to occur. On a federal level, all new buildings over 10,000 gross square feet need to meet sustainable building practices. And this can be done by either meeting what they call the guiding principles for federal sustainable buildings. This is a program that was developed back in 2006, 2008, was updated again in 2016. The federal guiding principles is a set of principles that look at energy and water, indoor environmental quality, as well as materials. Federal buildings have a choice of meeting the federal guiding principles or meeting third-party certification programs, in particular, meeting the U.S. Green Building Program LEED or GBI's program Green Globes.
As Mike mentioned, USGBC and the LEED program. USGBC is this year closing out our 25th anniversary. We've been around for a little while, and the LEED rating system has been around for about 20 years. The first projects in Texas were actually registered in the year 2000, and the first certification was in April of 2002, which is surprising how far we've come in just that short amount of time. Worldwide, there are more than 98,000 LEED certified projects. And these range from small interior projects to multi-million square foot buildings and headquarters complexes around the world. Currently, USGBC and the LEED rating system is used in 176 countries and territories. And taking a look at Texas itself, there's more than 13,500 LEED projects that are certified or registered, and more than 500 million square feet of space that has been certified to date, and more than 10,000 LEED professionals. Looking at things from a global scale, taking the United States out of the equation, the countries that have been, the areas of the world that have been pursuing LEED and pursuing sustainable building, China is the leader outside of the United States, and then Canada, and then India, Brazil, and getting into Europe as well. But being that we're Texans, we think of ourselves a little grander many times than just looking at state numbers. If Texas were a country, as some people wish we were on both sides of that argument. Texas would actually be fourth in the world in the use of LEED as a certification method. And that surprises many of my colleagues around the country, that there is a whole lot of green in a big red state. So there's many things going on, and adoption and the principles, as Mike talked about, why green building, are things that resonate through all of our communities. The USGBC Texas, as group I represent and work for on a daily basis, that what we're doing is we're trying to accelerate the adoption of green building and sustainable development in Texas. To facilitate that, we do have 5 regions. As was mentioned in my bio, we combined 4 chapters of USGBC in Texas officially in 2016. And we're so good at consolidation, we came up with 5 regions. But each of those regions, headquartered in Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and El Paso, are working on local programs, working with the folks in each of those areas to deliver education, as well as working with the local cities and counties on moving things forward as far as advocacy. One of our keys in advocacy is greener schools. Also looking at water quality and water use reduction, statewide initiatives around building codes, energy codes, and then the local focus, we've put a lot of effort into working with San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Austin, and El Paso on the revisions of the climate action plans and sustainability plans that each of those cities is operating on. If you're within any of those jurisdictions, please look for more information on that. There are some critical time votes coming up for influencing our local elected officials to move some of those programs forward from concept stage to actual implementation between now and the end of this year, and particularly between the beginning of 2020 and April of 2020. As I mentioned, there are 5 broader advocacy principles. Having our government entities lead by example, working with the private sector to drive market transformation, and looking at things not just on a building by building basis, but community-wide sustainability, and raising the bar on codes and regulations, and in particular, concentrating on green schools. I see there is a question already in the Q&A on green schools, and we'll address that at the end. There's a wide variety of projects. These 4 are all in the Austin area, all LEED certified projects, some residential, some commercial, some also education nonprofit examples. And one of the largest, actually the largest communities that's certified through the LEED for Neighborhood Development is the Miller redevelopment of the old Austin Airport. And this is actually garnered international attention and has been one awarded by USGBC for their leadership efforts, as well as their certification, but has also been an example for municipalities from around the country and literally around the world have been coming to talk with the people who have run this program or run this project on redevelopment on how they were able to incorporate so many sustainable features into each of the buildings and also their requirements. Mike had mentioned earlier about that with some of their neighborhood redevelopment projects that are going on specifically around the Austin area. So the examples keep growing. When Toyota was moving their headquarters from California to Texas, they set out to had specific goals, looking at things, 100-acre campus, 2.1 million square feet and 7 buildings, 4 parking structures. And this is a facility that has 4,000 employees, and it has been certified for LEED Platinum. One of the pieces that was key to them was to be sustainable, and that was driven down from their CEO's comments when announcing their new headquarters. The piece of this that incorporates particularly renewable energy, each of the 4 parking structures that are shown to the sides of the image are all covered with solar arrays. And here they are actually installed, and the solar array produces just over 9 megawatts, which is outperforming its design significantly. It was designed for 8.8 and is producing more than 9 on a consistent basis. Additional projects around the state: the new Austin Central Library, another LEED Platinum facility, incorporates many areas of sustainability, including on-site solar production as well. Mike.
Yeah, one of the things that we want to mention about the Austin Central Library is that it joins other green buildings here in the city of Austin. The Austin Library, Jonathan mentioned, it's a LEED Platinum building. It's had over 1 million visitors already. It is a fantastic library overall. The building itself has about 180 kW in terms of renewable energy production. It has over 500 PV panels on the building. It does have rainwater collection as well, and a rooftop garden. And it's a great place to sit and look at books. The Austin Central Library is one building, as I mentioned, of many green buildings that the city of Austin has. This process began not too long after the Austin Green Building Program was started a number of years ago. There was a community organization, basically a community group that was formed to help promote green building in the city. That task force recommended that all new city facilities be LEED. In fact, there is a framed plaque or framed sign in City Hall that names several of the citizens from the community that were involved in the early green building community that helped push forward that all new city facilities to be LEED. And so again, if you haven't been to the Austin Central Library, if you're visiting Austin sometime, I would certainly recommend take a stroll through the building itself. It's a great example of green building and a great example of how libraries should be in the future. As I mentioned earlier, I was talking a little bit about the federal activity in terms of green building, and that has an impact in Texas as well. Currently, there are about 150 federal buildings in Texas that have been certified by the guiding principles for federal sustainable buildings, or by LEED, or by Green Globes. And I expect we're going to continue to see additional green building certifications for our federal buildings in Texas. And again, these are for all different agencies. So Department of Energy up in Amarillo. We have GSA facilities in Houston. We have FAA buildings. We have green buildings that have been certified for the Department of Defense in Lackland and Fort Hood and Fort Bliss. And so Texas is really becoming a major state showcasing federal green building activities here as well.
So what are the key attributes of these buildings? It's not just efficiency in energy use and water use. The concepts we're looking at looking at safety, health, inclusiveness, smart technology, productivity for people working in the buildings, efficiency, obviously, equitable, sustainable, responsive, resilient. And it started with a LEED. And for USGBC, we've actually grown outside of that into more than just one rating system that we're working with. And it's not just at the state level or the national level. We actually have a global reach in this. And shifting more from a checklist on how a building is constructed into more performance measures on how those buildings are operated. So looking out kind of what is on the horizon for us as USGBC or the sustainable building industry as a whole. Just using Green Building Certification, Inc., which is the certification partner for the U.S. Green Building Council, there are 13 different programs that we currently work with. Some are designed, such as EDGE, which we're not really going to talk about much, are designed for parts of the world that don't have Western infrastructure. And how do you be sustainable when you don't have those resources for each and every project, to the RELY standard, which is actually being used as an underwriting standard in the insurance industry for resilience for properties in high-risk locations. But LEED is still the primary example of what USGBC and GBCI are involved with.
Just to mention a little bit about LEED and LEED version 4.1. If you're familiar with LEED, it is about continually to push the envelope, to continue to look for ways to save energy and save water, look at ways to make sure your buildings are healthy. The other aspect of LEED is to always look at what's going on in terms of the other national standards and make sure that the programs are aligned with those national standards. LEED 4.1 is in beta. One of the key areas, big differences for LEED version 4.1 versus LEED 4.0 is that the energy performance threshold has changed. Under LEED 4.1, it will follow the ASHRAE standard 90.1 2016. What's important about that as well is that the U.S. Department of Energy, through the P&L laboratory, has already made a positive determination that 90.1 2016 is more energy efficient than the 90.1 2013 standard. So we're going to see, again, where LEED is sort of taking the lead here, in a sense, of pushing for energy efficiency. Another key aspect under LEED 4.1 is renewable energy. It's really sort of beginning to say, okay, let's encourage and promote and give you a greater credit for renewable energy as well. Under LEED, program is that it also will be looking at in terms of various products and materials, understanding what the emissions issues, impacts behind those products that you're putting into your building as well. So it's another good example here of let's continue to move forward, let's continue to try to find ways to make our buildings better and healthier and more energy efficient. In terms of making our buildings healthier, this is probably one of the areas that we see, I would say, the most changes and the most interest from the built environment and various developers and home builders. And that is, let's talk about the occupants, the tenants in the building. The WELL building standard deals with that. The WELL building standard is about to say, let's remember that our buildings are about us, that it's about the occupants in the building. Let's make sure that the occupants are healthy. Let's make sure that there are practices in place so that you have a very livable environment in your building. So the WELL building standard, it is also very similar like LEED. It is a performance-based system. It looks at water issues, it looks at energy, but it looks at health issues and food and dietary issues, daylighting, just a variety of issues to make sure that we're looking at the human health features within the built environment. And this is probably one of the most important changes that we see in the green building field these days, is that when we start looking at occupant health and wellness. And we're going to see a lot more of that, I think, in the future. And I think you're going to see a lot more builders and developers who are going to be looking at this and say, we're very much interested in the WELL building standard. And one of the things that we're starting to hear from individuals who are looking for new places to work are also looking at and say, okay, does this company have environmental standards in place? What are they doing for me as the occupant, for the tenant, for the employee? So I think you're going to see, as we move forward over the next couple of years, the WELL building standard is going to increase significantly in terms of implementation across the country.
Absolutely, Mike. And one of the things that I've been seeing is this, looking at WELL and occupant health, is not a building operations issue, is not a building operations topic as much as it is a human resources topic, and how these processes and practices that are being implemented are directly impacting the workforce and recruitment and retention of employees in the long term. Looking a little bit more outside of the building, the Sustainable Sites Initiative also started in Austin in conjunction with the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. Was created to really evaluate all of the pieces of a development and building project that are outside of the building's footprint. And it's a framework to see what is practical and measurable in sustaining and designing a sustainable landscape, and incorporates the use of native plants. It incorporates the use of water-saving measures and capture of rainwater. And how do these things each play into the ongoing maintenance of a site from day one through longer occupation in this?
The other area that's now being offered is a new certification program called PEER. That stands for Performance Excellence in Electricity Renewal, or PEER. PEER is the nation's first rating system that measures and improves power system performance and electricity delivery systems. What's important here is that PEER is designed to provide dependable, sustainable power for all, while lowering electricity costs, improving the long-term quality of life in our communities. Some of the key areas that PEER is looking at in terms of bringing these diverse stakeholders together is the service providers, it's the utilities themselves, it's the cities, the communities, the customers, residential and commercial, industrial, manufacturing, as well as the regulators. I mentioned PEER is the first system for a rating system for electricity generation, transmission, and distribution. But one of the things that it does is that it incorporates and looks at distributed generation and on-site power generation, and looks at ways to improve energy efficiency and reliability in the system itself. Making sure that we have reliable power is extremely important. And PEER is about that. And PEER is a method, and it's also certified by GBCI. And it's available for any communities and any of the utilities as well. And one of the things that has happened is that when we start looking at PEER, we start looking at what is truly the reliability of that system. when we have, let's say, a natural disaster, will the system operate? What's going to happen? How reliable is that system? It looks at the energy efficiency of that system. What programs are being provided? It looks at the overall operational effectiveness of that particular system and looking at the grid, as well as looking at what's the involvement in the interrelationship to the customers. We're lucky. Here, the University of Texas was the first peer certified system. Not only the first system, but the first system that was certified in the world. The UT Austin system looked at in terms of, well, basically it had high reliability systems. We looked at the microgrid activities, and we're certainly proud to have the University of Texas being the first peer certified campus.
It was actually the first peer certified project in the world. Another area where Texas is stepping out into a leadership role. Moving forward, looking at reliability, how do we get, for many of us in the sustainability world, are trying to get our impact down to zero. For years, LEED has recognized all the reduction and on-site production for energy and rainwater capture and use reduction. But recently, announced last year, is a creation of LEED Zero certificates. And these are available in 3 areas for zero energy, net zero water, as well as net zero carbon. So these are it's a certificate opportunity on top of certification, specifically if projects do go over and above the credit they could get within the LEED rating system for performance in any of these areas.
So let's talk a little about where we see things going, again, in terms of the future here. We talked a little bit about the various programs that USGBC is offering. We talked a little bit about the well standard, the peer standard, and net zero. One of the things that we I think we'll see is that LEED version 4 or LEED version 4.1 is going to continue to move forward and be implemented. We see a tremendous amount of interest in net zero energy, net zero water, as well as net zero waste. I think one of the big areas of change that we'll expect here in the next few years is dealing with green building developments in the community. We've seen that a little bit here in Central Texas with the Whisper Valley development, where all the builders in the development have to build to a green building set of standards. We also expect probably to see more legislation out there dealing with green building performance and dealing with occupant health and wellness and energy and water issues. Here in Texas, Texas did pass House Bill 51 dealing with high performance and sustainable buildings. That initiative is not out yet, but that is a program that was to look at to require sustainable building activities. State Energy Office is looking at that at this particular time. And as we've talked about in terms of programs like the well standard and peer and net zero, we see this sort of expanding beyond just your basic green building standard. We see developers and home builders, as well as the customers, are saying, what else do you have? We want to make sure that our homes are healthy. We want to make sure that our working places are healthy. And so what we're starting to see here is that developers are looking beyond LEED and saying, yes, we're interested to be green. Yes, we want to have a green building certification, but we also want to make sure that that we have other activities going on in our buildings. And that may mean that we're going to work with the community in terms of a peer, or we're going to move towards to get a WELL building certification as well. And I think you're going to see a lot more builders and developers incorporating renewable energy into their projects. You know, one of the things that's happening right now is you have the ASHRAE standard 90.1. The latest standard is the 2016 version. The energy code is continuing to move forward and is pushing builders as well as developers to be more energy efficient. You have water efficient products that are readily available now as well. We have a lot of low emitting products that are available that were not available 10 years ago, let alone 20, 25 years ago when LEED began. So one of the things that builders and developers are beginning to look at and say, well, what do we do next? And that's where renewable energy comes in. That's where occupant health comes in. We see more developers, more industry, home builders are beginning to look at and say, yes, we can build green, but we can also make sure that we have renewable energy provided as part of that development as well. So I think you're going to see a lot more development similar to Whisper Valley beginning to appear throughout the Texas landscape as a way to attract customers, but also to say that they offer something special, and most importantly, they offer more of a livable community. And that really gets to, I think, the heart of the matter when we start looking at green building, where it all began back in the city of Austin. It was, how do we build buildings better? And it really gets down to the whole issue of quality of life. Can we promote better, healthier indoor and outdoor environments? And it expands to transportation issues. I think anybody in Texas that lives in Austin or Houston or Dallas, we all know about transportation issues. And one of the things that when we start looking at green building, we have to address transportation. We have to address that mobility issues. We want to make sure that we have a safe transportation process between your home and your business. And that's important. In Texas, one of the areas that we're concerned about is people are spending too much time in that transportation process from their home to the business, and it's not safe. We have too many individuals who have died on our Texas roads. We have over 100,000 crashes on our Texas highways. Part of green building, part of quality of life is saying, how do we make all of this come together? Make it safer, but also more environmentally friendly. And so you can also see more of the hybrid and electric vehicles as well. And that really gets into that third bullet of increasing that human health and well-being. We want to make sure that not only are you have a green livable space, but we want to make sure that you're safe in your place of work as well as you're safe in your place of home. And we can do this for everyone.
Which is actually the stated goal for USGBC, is to have a green buildings for everyone within a generation. And as Mike was saying, we're going beyond buildings at this point. And it's not just one building, it's not just a small campus. We're looking at things, even now, going to things from a city level. The Lead for Cities rating system does take things to that bigger scope. It is looking at transportation, health statistics, education statistics, crime statistics, energy production, as well as energy usage and methodologies and such for how that information is collected, and air quality to health outcomes are all factored into these opportunities. There are actually 6 cities in Texas that are in the process of going through certification for Lead for Cities. And that gets us, as we said, our goal, kind of looking at green buildings for everyone within a generation. And so with that, I think Mike and I have finally finished with what we've got, and what questions are out there from all of you in webinar land.
Thanks. Remember, if you have any questions, just please submit your question in the question box. So we do have one question. In May 2017, the Texas House passed H.R. 2090 expressing support for green schools, which encourages all Texans to learn more about the advantages green schools provide. Is this being done, and how can it be further spread?
Fantastic. It's a great question. And as I stated earlier, one of our advocacy priorities is green schools. There's a number of ways we're working on this. In the past legislative session, we spent many volunteer hours discussing topics around school facilities with our elected officials in Austin, primarily around testing for water quality, and particularly looking at lead testing in water for schools, and also air quality testing for schools. We were not as successful as we had hoped in helping bring some of those pieces to successful votes on the floor, but we're continuing to work on that. Additionally, we do have a toolkit for volunteers to work with their local school districts that's been created by the USGBC Center for Green Schools, and that goes through a number of different levels, from working on programs within existing school facilities to working with districts as they're developing new facilities to build those to a higher standard. Also, we're partnering with another nonprofit based in Austin called EcoRise to provide curriculum to teachers and classrooms across the state. EcoRise is working actually outside of Texas as well, but we're working particularly with schools in the Houston area, Austin area, San Antonio, and Dallas-Fort Worth right now on a couple different pieces. There's an environmental intelligence curriculum that EcoRise has developed that is approved for K through 12 in the state of Texas to meet state educational requirements. And those are definitely links that we can provide more information on, or if you have specific questions, can be sent to either Mike or myself, and we can get you additional follow-up information.
Looks like we have another question on appliance manufacturing energy efficiency standards. Are they in step with green building, ahead, or trailing?
Well, this is Mike, and I'll try to answer that a little bit. In terms of the appliance standards, the U.S. Department of Energy obviously is involved in a lot of that in terms of working on the standards themselves. I think the green building programs are certainly continuing to push that, on a residential level as well as on the commercial level, and even for federal buildings, the requirements are to have Energy Star appliances. And so I think as long as we continue to push the envelope in terms of making sure that we have appliances that are performing the way they're supposed to perform, and that are energy efficient, water efficient, I think that works. I think one of the things about what's great about these standards and programs like LEED, it is pushing the industry. And so I do see the appliances continue to get more efficient. But I think it's also important for us to make sure that the green building programs continue to require that we have the Energy Star appliances as well as other energy efficient appliances in the programs, and they do at this particular time.
And I don't foresee that changing. I think that will continue to be a requirement.
Mike, I think that was all the questions we had. So thank you to both Mike and Jonathan, and thank you for joining us for our program today. We hope the information provided was helpful to you and your organization. If you have not already done so, please click on the survey icon at the bottom of your screen to complete our short survey. Your feedback assists us in providing quality future programs. As a reminder, this program has been approved for Texas Continuing Legal Education Credit. A recording of the webcast will be available tomorrow for watching and sharing. Once available, a link to the recording will be emailed to you along with a certificate of attendance. Please be sure to join us for our next webinar in October covering community solar. This concludes our webinar. Thank you.